Hello, I'm Achut Nair from Nair's Aviation Ground School. This is the 31st video in a new series of educational aviation videos for the aspiring pilot. The aviation world can be overwhelming for the newcomer. Student pilots initially have to deal with a lot of industry jargon and specialized terminology. This terminology could make the aviation world seem more complicated or confusing than it really is. This video is about aviation terminology. Aviation is a field with a lot of technical aspects. Some of these aspects need to be expressed quickly and concisely during flight. In order to aid the speed of communication while retaining the integrity of the message, several universally accepted abbreviations and terminology are used throughout the aviation field. Abbreviations are very commonly used when referring to airspeed of the aircraft. The knots calibrated airspeed, abbreviated as KCAS, is indicated airspeed corrected for position and instrument error and expressed in knots. Knots calibrated airspeed is equal to knots true airspeed in standard atmosphere at sea level. Knots indicated airspeed, abbreviated as KIAS, is the speed shown on the airspeed indicator and is expressed in knots. Knots true airspeed, abbreviated as KTAS, is the airspeed expressed in knots relative to undisturbed air, which is KCAS corrected for altitude and temperature. In order to maximize efficiency and quicken communication in the cockpit, significant performance-related airspeed values are abbreviated and referred to during the phases of flight. These abbreviations all begin with the letter V, referencing velocity. VA is the abbreviation for maneuvering speed. Maneuvering speed is the maximum speed at which full or abrupt control movements may be used without overstressing the airframe. VFE is the abbreviation for the maximum flap extended speed. Maximum flap extended speed is the highest speed permissible with wing flaps in a prescribed extended position. Maximum structural cruising speed is abbreviated as VNO. Maximum structural cruising speed is a speed that should not be exceeded except in smooth air and then only with caution. VNE is a never exceed speed. VNE is a speed limit that may not be exceeded at any time during the flight. VS is a stalling speed. Also known as the minimum steady flight speed, VS is the minimum speed at which the airplane is controllable. VSO is also the stalling speed, but it is the minimum speed at which the airplane is controllable in the landing configuration, at the most forward center of gravity. Vx is the best angle of climb speed. Vx is the speed which results in the greatest gain of altitude in a given horizontal distance. Vy is the best rate of climb speed. Vy is the speed which results in the greatest gain in altitude in a given time. The weather plays a very important role in aviation, so several meteorology abbreviations and terminology have been developed. OAT is the outside air temperature. Outside air temperature is the free air static temperature. It may be expressed in either degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit. Standard is a term used in meteorology to refer to the temperature or the pressure, depending on the context. Standard temperature is 15 degrees Celsius at sea level pressure altitude and decreases by 2 degrees Celsius for each 1,000 feet of altitude gained. Pressure altitude is the altitude read from an altimeter when the altimeter's barometric scale has been set to 2 inches of mercury. 2 inches of mercury is also referred to as a standard pressure. More than any other segment of transportation around the world, pilots need to have an intimate knowledge of the engines of the machines they are flying. This has led to many engine and power related terminology and abbreviations. bhp, or brake horsepower, is the power developed by the engine. This measure of horsepower is the same metric used in measuring the power of engines of road-going vehicles. In some parts of the world, watts or kilowatts are used. When trying to convert from horsepower to watts or vice versa, keep in mind that 1 horsepower equals 746 watts. RPM refers to revolutions per minute, which describes the engine speed. Static RPM is engine speed attained during a full throttle engine run-up when the airplane is on the ground and stationary. Lean mixture refers to a decreased proportion of fuel in the fuel-air mixture supplied to the engine. As air density decreases, the amount of fuel required by the engine decreases for a given throttle setting. Adjusting the fuel-air mixture to provide a smaller portion of fuel is known as leaning the mixture. Rich mixture refers to an increased proportion of fuel in the fuel-air mixture supplied to the engine. As air density increases, the amount of fuel required by the engine increases for a given throttle setting. Adjusting the fuel-air mixture to provide a greater portion of fuel is known as richening the mixture. Full rich refers to the mixture control moved full forward. In other words, pushed in full control travel towards the panel of the aircraft. Idle cutoff refers to the mixture control moved full aft. In other words, pulled out full control travel away from the panel of the aircraft. Full throttle describes the throttle moved full forward, pushed in full control travel toward the panel. It is also known as full open throttle. Closed throttle describes the throttle moved full aft, pulled out full control travel away from the panel. It is also known as the throttle idle position. Flying depends on much of the variable environmental and performance of the aircraft. Specialized terminology was developed to describe the varying aspects of aircraft performance. The demonstrated crosswind velocity is the velocity of the crosswind component for which adequate control of the airplane during takeoff and landing was actually demonstrated during the certification tests of the aircraft. The value shown is not considered to be a limiting factor, but it is a good piece of information to keep in mind. Usable fuel is the fuel available for flight planning. Unusable fuel is a quantity of fuel that cannot be safely used in flight. Gallons per hour, abbreviated as GPH, is the amount of fuel consumed per hour by the aircraft. On larger aircraft, describing fuel in gallons is unnecessarily complex, and pounds or kilograms per hour is used to describe fuel consumption. Nautical miles per gallon, abbreviated as NMPG, is a distance which can be expected per gallon of fuel consumed at a specific engine power setting or flight configuration. G is acceleration due to gravity. G is often used to describe the amount of weight felt on the aircraft during maneuvers. For example, a very steep, tight turn could be referred to as a 2G or 3G turn. Course datum is the compass reference used by the autopilot, along with course deviation, to provide lateral control when tracking a navigational signal. Weight and the distribution of weight plays a very important role in flight. Pilots are required to calculate the weight and balance of the aircraft prior to flight and are expected to be aware of the impacts of the weight and balance on the performance of the aircraft. It is not surprising that abbreviations and terminology relating to weight and balance are also commonly used in aviation. The reference datum is an imaginary vertical plane from which all horizontal distances are measured for balance purposes. Station is a location along the airplane fuselage given in terms of distance from the reference datum. Arm is a horizontal distance from the reference datum to the center of gravity, or CG, of an item. Moment is the product of the weight of an item multiplied by its arm. Moment divided by the constant 1,000 is used in many pilot operating handbooks to simplify balance calculations by reducing the number of digits. Center of gravity, or CG, is the point at which an airplane or equipment would balance if suspended. Its distance from the reference datum is found by dividing the total moment by the total weight of the airplane. CG arm, an abbreviation of the center of gravity arm, is the arm obtained by adding the airplane's individual moments and dividing the sum by the total weight. Center of gravity limits, or CG limits, are the extreme center of gravity locations within which the airplane must be operated at a given weight. Standard empty weight is the weight of a standard airplane, including unusable fuel, full operating fluids, and full engine oil. Basic empty weight is a standard empty weight plus the weight of optional equipment. Useful load is the difference between ramp weight and the basic empty weight of the aircraft. The mean aerodynamic chord, abbreviated as MAC, is a chord of imaginary rectangular airfoil having the same pitching moments throughout the flight range as that of the actual wing. Maximum ramp weight is the maximum weight approved for ground maneuvers and includes the weight of the fuel that used for taxis, start, and run-up. Maximum takeoff weight is the maximum weight approved for the start of the takeoff roll. Maximum landing weight is the maximum weight approved for the landing touchdown. Tare, spelled T-A-R-E, is the weight of chocks, blocks, stands, etc. used when weighing an airplane and is included in the scale readings. Tare is deducted from the scale reading to obtain the actual net airplane weight. The aspiring pilot, when first beginning their flight training, can be overwhelmed by the technical terms and industry jargon. But with proper review and study, all the abbreviations and complex words can make perfect sense. Before long, the student pilot will be at ease, using the abbreviations and terms just like a professional pilot. For more information, please contact us at liftanddrag@gmail.com and visit our website at niersaviation.webnode.com. Thank you, safe flying.